And so, remembering this book, by chance his heart as suddenly began to dance for joy within him. Suddenly reassured, he said, "My brother shall be quickly cured, for I am certain that there must be sciences by which illusions can be made appliances, such as these subtle jugglers use in play at banquets. Very often people say these conjurers can bring into a large and lofty hall fresh water and a barge, and there they seem to row it up and down, sometimes a lion, grim and tawny brown, sometimes a meadow full of flowery shapes, sometimes a vine with white and purple grapes, sometimes a castle which by some device, though stone and lime, will vanish in a trice, or seem at least to vanish out of sight. So I conclude that if I only might discover some old fellow of the kind who has these moony mansions in his mind at Orleans, or has some power above, all this my brother might enjoy his love. A learned man could hoodwink all beholders with the illusion that the rocks and boulders of Brittany had vanished one and all, and ships along the brink could safely call, coming and going, and if it but endured a day or two, my brother could be cured. She will be forced to recognize his claim, or else she will at least be put to shame. Why draw my story out? What need be said? He went to where his brother lay in bed, and brought him so much comfort with his plot to visit Orleans, that up he got and started off at once upon the road, high in the hope of lightening his load. They named the city where it seemed to be. They neared the city when it seemed to be about 2 furlongs off, or maybe 3. They met a youngish scholar all alone, who greeted them in Latin in a tone of friendly welcome, and he struck them dumb in wonder with, "I know why you have come," and ere they went a step upon their way, he told them they all had in mind to say. He told them all they had in mind to say. The Breton scholar wanted to be told about the friends they had known of old, and he replied that they were all now dead. He spoke with feeling, many tears were shed. Down from his horse Aurelius soon alighted, to follow the magician, who invited him and his brother home, set them at ease, and served them victuals. Nothing that could please was lacking, and Aurelius soon decided he'd never seen a house so well provided, and the magician caused there to appear, before their supper, parks of forest deer, and he saw stags among them, antlered high, the greatest ever seen by human eye. He saw 100 of them killed by hounds, and others, arrow-wounded, lay in mounds. Next, when the deer had vanished, he was shown a river bank, and there a hawk was flown by falconers. They saw a heron slain. Then he saw knights at joust upon a plain, and after that Aurelius was entranced at seeing his beloved as she danced, and he, it seemed, was dancing with her too. And when the master of this magic view saw it was time, he clapped his hands and banished the figures, and farewell, our revels vanished. Yet all the time they had not left the house, while being shown these sights so marvellous, but sat within his study, where they lay, his books about them. There were none but they. The master called the squire, who was to set their meal, and said, "Is supper ready yet?" It's very near an hour, I could swear," he added, "since I told you to prepare, when these 2 gentlemen came in with me to see my study and my library." "Sir," said the squire, "it's ready, and you may begin, if it so please you, right away." "Then let us eat," he said. "That will be best. These amorous people sometimes need a rest." After they'd eaten, bargaining began. What payment should this master artisan have to remove the rocks of Brittany from the Gironde to where the Seine meets sea? He made it difficult, and roundly swore he'd take £1,000 for it or more. He wasn't too eager even at that price. Aurelius, with his heart in paradise, readily answered, "Fie on £1,000! I'd give the world, which people say is round, the whole wide world, if it belonged to me. Call it a bargain, then, for I agree you should be truly paid it, on my oath. But look, I'm sure no negligence or sloth delay us here. Be sure no negligence or sloth Delay us here beyond tomorrow now. The scholar gave him answer. That I vow. Aurelius went to bed in high delight, and rested soundly pretty well all night, tired by his journey, and with hope retrieved, he slept, the troubles of his heart relieved. The morning came. As soon as it was day, they made for Brittany by the nearest way, the brothers with the wizard at their side, and there dismounted, having done their ride. It was, so say the books, if I remember, the cold and frosty season of December. Phoebus grew old. His coppered face was duller than it had been in Cancer, when his color shone with the burnished gold of streaming morn. But now, descending into Capricorn, his face was very pale. I dare maintain the bitter frosts, the driven sleet and rain had killed the gardens green and disapproved. Now Janus by the fire with double beard. No. Had killed the gardens green had disappeared. Now Janus by the fire with double beard, his bugle horn in hand, sits drinking wine. Before him stands a brawn of tusky swine. And sing Noel, cries every lusty man. Aurelius, using all the means he can, gives welcome to the master, shows respect, and begs his diligence, that no neglect or sloth delay the healing of his smart, lest he should kill himself, plunge sword in heart. This subtle sage had pity on the man, and night and day went forward with his plan, watching the hour to favor the conclusion of his experiment, that by illusion or apparition, call it jugglery, I lack the jargon of astrology, she and the world at large might think and say the rocks had all been spirited away from Brittany, or sunk under the ground. And so, at last, the favoring hour was found to do his tricks and wretched exhibition of that abominable superstition. His calculating tables were brought out, newly corrected. He made sure about the years in series and the single years, to fix the points the planets in their spheres were due to reach, and so assess their route in longitude, and other things to suit, such as his astrolabe and argument from arc and angle, and was provident to fit proportionals for the minor motion of planets. And he studied with devotion, measuring from the point where Alnus swam in the 8th sphere to where the head of Ram stood in the 9th in its eternal station. And we suppose, and made his calculation, and finding the first mansion of the moon, he calculated all the rest in tune. With that he worked proportionally, knowing how she would rise, and whether she was going, relative to which planets and their place, equal or not, upon the zodiac face. And thus, according to his calculations, he knew the moon in all her operations, and all the relevant arithmetic for his illusion, for the wretched trick he meant to play, as in those heathen days people would do. There were no more delays, and by his magic, for a week or more, it seemed the rocks were gone, he cleared the shore. Aurelius, still despairing of the plot, nor knowing whether he'd get his love or not, waited for miracles by night and day, and when he saw the rocks were cleared away, all obstacles removed, the plot complete, he fell in rapture at his master's feet. Wretch as I am, for what has passed between us, to you, my lord, and to my lady Venus, I offer thanks, he said, for by your care, as poor Aurelius is well aware, he has been rescued from a long dismay. And to the temple then he took his way, where he knew his lady was to be, and when he saw his opportunity, with terror in his heart and humbled face, he made obeisance to her sovereign grace. My trusted lady, said this woeful man, whom most I dread and love as best I can, last in the world of those I would displease, had I not suffered so many miseries for love of you, so many I repeat, that I am like to perish at your feet, I would not dare approach you, or go on to tell you how forlorn and woebegone I am for you. But I must speak or die. You kill me with your torture, guiltless I. Yet if my death could never so have stirred your pity, think before you break your word. Repent, relent, remember God above you, before you murder me because I love you. You know what you have promised to requite. Not that I challenge anything of right, my sovereign lady, only of your grace. Yet in a garden yonder, at such a place, you made a promise which you know must stand, and gave your plighted truth into my hand, to love me best, as you said, as God above knows, though I was unworthy of your love. It is your honor, madam, I am seeking. It's not to save my life that I am speaking. I have performed what you commanded me. As if you deign to look, you soon will see. Do you please but think of what I said, for you will find me here alive or dead. It lies in you to save me or to slay. But well I know, the rocks are all away. He took his leave, and left the place. Without a drop of color in her face, she stood as thunderstruck by her mishap. Alas, she said, to fall in such a trap! I never had thought the possibility of such a monstrous miracle could be. It goes against the process of nature. And home she went, a very sorrowful creature, in deadly fear, and she had much to do. Even to walk, she wept a day or two, wailing and swooning, pitiful to see. But why she did so, not a word said she. For her, Avaragus was out of town. But to herself she spoke, and flinging down in pitiable pallor on her bed, she voiced her lamentation, and she said, Alas of thee, O fortune, I complain, that unawares has racked me in thy chain, which to escape two ways alone disclose themselves, death or dishonor, one of those, and I must choose between them as a wife. Yet I would rather render up my life than to be faithless or endure a shame upon my body, or to lose my name. My death will quit me of a foolish vow. And has not many a noble wife ere now, and many a virgin, slain herself to win her body from pollution and from sin? Yes, surely, many a story we may trust bears witness 30 tyrants full of lust slew Phaedo the Athenian like a beast, then had his daughters carried to their feast, and they were brought before them in despite, stark naked to fulfill their foul delight, and there they made them dance upon the floor. God send them sorrow in their father's gore. And these unhappy maidens, full of dread, rather than be robbed of maidenhead, broke from their guard, and leapt into a well, and there were drowned, so ancient authors tell. The people of Messenia also sought some 50 maidens out of Sparta bought, only that they might work their lechery upon them, but in all that company not one that was not slain. They were content to suffer death rather than to consent to being forced in their virginity. What then's the fear of death, I say to me? Consider Aristocles for this, a tyrant lusting after Stymphalus, who, when her father had been slain one night, fled for protection to Diana's might into her temple, clung to her effigy with both hands, and from it could not be dragged off. They could not tear her hands away, till they killed her. If a virgin may be seen to have so loath an appetite, to be defiled by filthy man's delight, surely a wife should kill herself ere she were so defiled. Or so it seems to me.